through the department. We also work very closely, this Department of State Development is a state government department, but we work very closely with our Australian government colleagues, Scott. And I'm going to talk today about a state government program, and I'm also going to talk today about an Australian government program, both of which can assist businesses to upskill themselves and their staff. So to start off with, I just want to, a couple of quick things. This is the first year I understand that this has been done, the Business Week, and I think it's been a great success. When we talk to businesses about the various programs that we run, one of the things that we really like to do is to provide opportunities for businesses who have been through our programs to get up and talk about their experiences and the success that they've achieved through the various different things and their various interactions with government. Now, down here, we haven't had a lot of activity in the last few years, and so that's something we're really keen to try and change. And so for this year, you've got Ivor and I, we're both public servants, but one of the key things I want to get out of today and the year ahead is the opportunity to work with some of you guys on some programs and some training, get some activity happening, so that next year, when we're up here, it's not Ivor or I up the front here talking to you about our programs. It's one of you guys or someone from this community who's talking about this is what happened in my business this year and how it's helped me. Okay. So training and developing and investing in upskilling your staff is really important. And I'm sure you don't need to be told that. But I'm just going to quickly go through some of the background about why, from our point of view, from the state government's point of view, we put such an important focus on training and skills development and development within business. I was going to talk about growing your business and all the investment into your business itself, but I'm going to start off by talking to you about why it's important to invest in your business. So, basically, your staff and yourself are your major assets in terms of growing your business and expanding your market and investing in and looking at ways in which you can grow and support yourself and your staff to have the skills to either help take that idea to the next level or to grow your markets or to increase your business is a really important way to help grow your business and take it to the next stage. But to be able to do that, you've really got to know a couple of things first. And the one thing is you've got to really know what you've got, what your skills are, what the skills are of your business and your staff, and what are the skills and the things that you're going to want to be able to move your business on to the next level. So if you need help with staffing your business, either you're wanting to grow or you're wanting to take it to the next level, then we've got programs that can assist you to do that. But the first step, as I said, is knowing your workforce, knowing the skills that you've got. So employees and businesses can access subsidised support for training and assistance through both the Department of State Development and through the Australian Government's Industry Skills Fund. I'm going to talk a bit about both of those programs today. So the starting point though is to do a bit of a training needs analysis, which means just going through and understanding your skills, and it's really important that you understand your skills as a business owner and also the skills that you've got within your business around your staff. And look, there are things and assistance that you can do that. A lot of the information on the presentation up there comes from the Department of State Development's website, so you can go and access this information, and there are tools and supports on there to help you to go through that process, but there are also organisations and others that can assist you through that process. One of the important things and really valuable things about the Industry Skills Fund program, which is an Australian government program, is that starts off with a business consultant. In this area it's a guy called David Furness, and some of you know David. He's spoken at an event earlier in the week. Can come out and spend some time with your business, sit down with you and look at your skills and look at your training needs and actually do a bit of a plan with you and assist you through that process. So they can help you to work out what skills you need and what directions you might want to take. Because if you really need to have that before you can take that next step about trying to improve your skills and improve the skills of your staff. So doing a training and needs analysis is the first step, and there is assistance to help you do that. So David, as I said, he's works for the Industry Skills Fund, but he actually is employed by the Australian Industry Group down here. So the Australian Industry Group has a number of consultants, but David is the local one, which is a local guy, lives up at Hayborough. So the Work Ready program. So basically there's two programs I want to talk about today. The first one is Work Ready, and this is the state government's program. So the state government invests a lot into training and skills development. Now most of the focus for the state government is in training staff, so rather than the business owner. Our investment from the state government in terms of the business and the business owner is more what I will talk about. But the Industry Skills Fund has a focus, which is the Australian government one, has a focus on both the business owner and the and staff as well. So we'll touch on both of those. So Work Ready. So what is Work Ready? So Work Ready basically is the new version of what used to be called Skills for All. I'm sure some of you may have heard of that. It's certainly been around in the news for a while there. Skills for All was the state government's investment in training. The state government had a focus on trying to lift the number of people that had qualifications and rolled out a program that basically subsidised a whole lot of qualifications. The uptake of that was fantastic, and we had a lot of people go through training, and we spent the 10-year budget in about 18 months. So what we've done, the state government has really focused the Skills for All program as it shifted into Work Ready, and now it's very targeted. And it's targeted, there's still subsidised training, but it's targeted at specific areas, specific qualifications that are seen by the state government as priority. And those align with the state government's priority areas and really the growth areas for the state. So there's quite a bit of work that goes into determine what are the sort of key qualifications that the state government wants to invest in training. And if you think about the sort of key growth industries in the state, they align with those. So there's some stuff in the manufacturing space to help us shift from old style manufacturing to new manufacturing. Health and community services as the sort of major new growth industry. Well, not new, it's been with us for a long time, but it's the major growth industry in the state. Agriculture, horticulture, primary production, sort of the foundations, the bedrock of South Australian economy, always has been, always probably will be. Another key area, retail, hospitality, sort of the tourism, they're also key areas that are funded under Skills for All, under Work Ready. A lot of the qualifications that aren't funded anymore are the ones that are a bit more peripheral and not quite as obvious in terms of the economic return. So again, happy to talk to you about, if you're interested, to talk to you about that and help you guide through that process to identify if the training qualifications that you want might be on the list and are subsidised. If they're not subsidised, they're still available. It just means that the government's not contributing to the fees for them. So Work Ready program. Now, Work Ready program has a couple of different elements. So the first one is just purely about qualifications. Basically what Work Ready does, it funds what we call the subsidised training list. So the bulk of the Work Ready funding goes into paying for full qualifications. Full qualifications, we fund that under two ways. One, a lot of it is with TAFE. TAFE are an important partner for the state government, and we're assisting TAFE to move from being a purely public provider to being a more, be able to operate more effectively in the private space. And so they're going through a transition at the moment. A lot of our funding for qualifications is with TAFE, but we also have what we call our subsidised training list, which is the private providers. Now, for private providers to access the subsidised training, they need to have it and be in partnership with businesses, with someone like you. And basically they need to be able to demonstrate that there is employment or some sort of business growth or opportunity to, for people who get those qualifications to grow, get jobs or to help grow businesses. So it's very much around a partnership. So Work Ready is very much around partnerships between businesses and the state government and the training provider. So now, TAFE is also increasingly moving into that space, and that's the expectation of the state government on TAFE. it's got the bulk of the training, but the expectation is that they move increasingly towards their spend on that training being aligned to business and being aligned to employment opportunities and growth opportunities as well. So I've also been asked to put in here and just briefly touch on the other major growth area and major change that's happening across the economy, and that's the National Disability Insurance Scheme as that rolls out. I'm not sure if there's anybody here today who's in that space, who works in the health and community services area, but if you are, you're likely to be impacted by changes to the National Disability Insurance Scheme. The numbers that they're talking about in terms of new jobs required through that rollout, because basically what's happening is we've gone from an area where the government has funded traditionally funded organisations, and so it's sort of been a grant fund to major organisations to provide disability services, and we're moving towards more of a market-driven approach where people with disabilities are individually given funding and they purchase the services as they need them. Now, there are mechanisms within that to make sure that they're purchasing the right types of services, so plans are developed up, but it's still a much more flexible system. And what that basically means is there'll be a lot more people needed on the workers needed in that sector to meet that demand, but also there'll be lots of opportunities for businesses to start up across a range of things, servicing people with a disability. So it's not just the traditional your traditional thinking around disability in terms of home care or assistance. People with a disability, they want to have the same sorts of experiences and opportunities as everybody else. So there's business opportunities to assist people with disabilities in terms of engaging out with the community and socially and all sorts of other things as well. So, it will depend, and they're still rolling it out and working out exactly what it looks like, but there is a range of opportunities and there's an expectation that the workforce in that space will grow significantly, thousands of people. So we're talking about 8,000 people across the state over the next 18 months to three years. So now those figures are, I use them a little bit cautiously, but we're still talking significant numbers. And as that rolls out, it'll be rolled out across various areas at different stages. And the Flurio, I understand, is coming out sort of mid 2017, so that'll start happening down here. So took me off on a bit of a tangent, but the reason I wanted to touch on that is for WorkReady, talking about partnerships between state government and businesses. If you're interested or you're working in that space, there's specific money, state government money, to assist with training and developing people in the NDIS disability space. So, okay. All right. So subsidised training I've already just talked about briefly. So subsidised training, STL list, basically we've got training providers. They have to be, we identify them, they have to apply to be on our list, and then they will work in partnership with businesses to identify a need, and we'll then fund that. We're just in the process of identifying that allocation, how we're going to spend that money for this year. And I will say, going through that process, there's not a lot of training providers who are specifically looking down into this area. There's a number that are looking at providing qualifications that include the Flurio, Adelaide Hills, the Flurio, but I don't think there's any that are specifically only looking down into this area. So there are opportunities there, because we can fund projects and fund training qualifications in large numbers or small numbers. So as I said at the start, one of the things we're really keen to do from today and over the year is to work with businesses around what your training needs are and try and get a greater presence and more resources, more funding, state government funding, coming into the Flurio and into businesses down here. Okay. The other part of WorkReady. So I've talked about full qualifications, and that's a very important element. The other part is what we call jobs first. So this is the employment element. So the Department of State Development used to be the Department of Further Education, Employment, Science and Technology, DFEAST, and we have two bits basically. We have our training arm and we have our employment arm. Now, I'm actually out of the employment arm. I've worked in the employment space for quite a few years. But we've come together. They are two sides of the same coin, but we do them. They do require different things. So our Jobs First employment projects, that's in the process of rolling out too. So again, it's like the subsidised training, and this is something I really want to stress with you guys, and I'm really keen to talk more with businesses down here about opportunities. This is about placing people into jobs. So if you've got businesses that are seeking staff, doesn't matter how many, even if it's just a couple, seeking staff, wanting some assistance to help train those staff or help them to do some sifting and some employment, or looking at trying to recruit people who, you look around, you go, there's nobody in this community who could meet my workforce needs. But there might be some people with a bit of help who could meet our workforce needs. Because the other side of this is one of the major challenges for down here is we have a significant issue around youth employment and trying to employ young people. And we also have significant issues around people at the other end, people who are retired and wanting to just keep their hand in and work, do some hours and trying to re-engage back into the workforce. So we have groups at both ends as well as people in the middle. So basically, Jobs First employment projects are an opportunity for a business to work with various training providers that we have in the region. We've got a couple of them here today. We've got Dome over there, and we've got a couple of others in the region as well, who we can link in with. So basically, we form a partnership between a business and one of those providers, and we've got a list of a whole heap of them, who can provide support for that business to place people into jobs with that business. So a Jobs First employment project does four things. It funds four things. It funds accredited training, so that's like the other training it funds, but it doesn't fund full qualifications. It only funds skill sets. So if you just need somebody to be able to do a few things to get the job done, you don't want to have to put them through a 2-year Certificate 3. You just want them to be able to do these particular skills. Well, it will fund to provide that. It will fund to provide some literacy and numeracy training if there's some literacy and numeracy issues in there. And it will fund mentoring and case management. So it will fund some support to get people into your business and support them to make that transition if they haven't worked for a while, or if it's a new industry, to help them to make that transition, settle in, get established and become good, solid employees. So Jobs First employment projects, they fund those four elements. So accredited training, some literacy and numeracy support if it's needed, and case management and mentoring. So they're the four things that it will fund, and it will fund those in partnership with your business. We will only fund projects that are working with businesses. And again, what we're really keen to do, before today I was casting around seeing if there were any businesses in the area that had been through that process, and we haven't got any in the Fleurieu at the moment. Really keen to try and get some, so that this time next year, you can have a couple of businesses talking about, well, this is how it worked for us. Good and bad. You know, everyone's experience will be their experience and they'll be different, but there will be benefits for your business and for you going through that process. So Jobs First employment projects. Now, as I said at the start, there is assistance to go through that process, and the first place to come to with that is me, as the regional manager. This is a key part of my role, is to work with businesses and to work with you around assisting you to navigate that. And we also have a broker, Joanna Milbank. You may have come across her. She works for the Regional Development Board. She also does this role and will work with businesses to assist you through that process. Okay, so we just talked about what a Jobs First employment project is. Okay, so I'm not really using my notes, so it's hard to follow the slides. Okay, so that's really the state government program. So we're very much around full qualification training or employment projects, but the key point is it's around a partnership with you. And so what that means is that the business is at the centre of that. It's not about the training provider, and it's certainly not about the state government. It's about the business and how we can assist you to meet your workforce or your training needs. The next part, this is the Australian government program. This is the program, David Furness is the primary face of this in this community, is the Industry Skills Fund. So this is a significant program. It's aimed at businesses that are growing, and they have to be able to demonstrate a growth strategy, which basically means that they've got a strategy of how they're growing their business and wanting to take it to the next level. So Industry Skills Fund program, that's it. Basically, they're looking for solutions to grow their business and get them to go to the next part. Okay. It's targeted again at specific industries, and And those specific industries, again, align to the sorts of things we talked about before. Advanced manufacturing, food and agribusiness, medical technologies. Now, it's an Australian government program, so these are priorities that are national. I've worked with these guys for a couple of years now, and I'm aware that if you've got a good growing business, an important business, you know, things are going really well, and you don't fit those, it's still worth having a conversation to these guys for a couple of reasons. One, I've certainly known them to fund training in industries, businesses that are in industries that don't fit that, because if there's a growth there, and particularly if there's growth and leading to jobs, then they're very happy to invest. But also, the very part of the program is the very start of it. You get that free assistance from David, who'll come into your business and spend some time with you, looking at your skills and where you're at. It doesn't cost you anything. That happens, and then they put the application in. So even if you don't fit those priorities, it doesn't hurt to contact David and get him to come in and spend some time with your business. He can give you some free advice and help you develop up a plan. So even if we can't then access some free or subsidised training, it's not free, it's subsidised, you still at least get that advice for free. So it's worth, even though there's priorities, it's still worth considering. So as I said, that's this slide here. So you get the free advice, and then you get the training grants up front. So the training grants, as I say, it's a subsidised training program, and it will fund those sorts of things. So accredited qualifications, again, similar to the state government, accredited qualifications, skill sets, customised mix of different competencies, non-accredited training, mentoring and coaching, very similar to the state government program. Okay, so the same sorts of things. One of the key differences with Industry Skills Fund though is, again, Industry Skills Fund is also as much for the business owner as it is for the employees, whereas the state government program is primarily for your employees. So again, what types of training? Skills gaps, literacy, numeracy, helping you with new technology, plant and equipment, new working systems, learner resources and supports. And I'm aware of the various types of things that have been funded under this. So businesses that have put in to get training on new equipment that they've put in. But I'm also aware of one particular business that wasn't in one of those priority areas. They sent the business owner, they put an application in for the business owner and the newly employed business development person within that business to do grant writing training, because that was their growth strategy. They were going to apply for more grants and grow their business that way. And so they were able to get the funding for that, the business owner and their business development officer to access that training. Subsidised, didn't get it all paid, they had to pay something, they had to have some skin in the game, but they were able to get some assistance in that. And one of the really interesting things about this, and I always like to tell this particular element of the story, because it's so often with government grants, put in a government grant, disappears into the government system, and then it could take an indeterminate time to get a response. With these guys, the process, I've experienced this myself, is can be really quick. So basically you start off with, there's a number you can ring, talk to the guys who are in Adelaide. They'll then link you up with David or your business advisor, which is what happened with this particular case. He went and spoke to them. They, because it was a fairly straightforward one, they just put the application straight in, and within 7 days, it was actually less than that, it was about 5 days, they had the response and they had the grant and they could do the training. Now that's, I tell that story because that's quite amazingly quick. And they are very, very responsive, particularly for the smaller grants. But the other part of it is that there are, the guys in that program will work with you and talk with you through the process. So it's not just take it from the website, put it in and hope for the best. There are people that will work with you and take you through the system. So funding arrangements, this is the important bit. Let's talk about it's subsidised, so it's a co-contribution. So if you're a really small business, you've got less than 4 employees, then you have to, your contribution is 25% and the Industry Skills Fund will pay 75%. As it goes up, so if you've got more than 200 employees, then you have to contribute 75% and the Industry Skills Fund will contribute 25%. And that's the sort of scale. The focus is primarily on small to mediums, but larger organisations certainly can apply. But it's all about economies of scale. A large organisation is not going to apply for 2 people. They'd want to be putting an application for for more than that generally. Again, it's up to the business, but the focus is on small to mediums, and as I say, it's that's really about making sure that there's an investment. They want to make sure the businesses are invested in that training. They've got skin in the game. That's just background music. Funding application. So a minimum of 2 quotes for training costs. It must be direct training or development costs. They must meet the 5 criteria. So you've got to be able to demonstrate a growth strategy. So how is this going to help your business to grow? Right? So it's not about helping you. That's not necessarily linked to employment, because it could be that you're wanting to go down a lean path, and a lot of businesses in manufacturing have gone down lean. And so that's not necessarily doesn't always lead to more employment, but it leads to a growth in the business, which might in the short term mean less employment but further employment down the track. But it's certainly a growth strategy about how you're going to grow your business, make your business bigger, more productive. Productivity gains for both the company and the Australian economy. Linkages of skills gaps, shortages to growth opportunity, your value for money, and capability for the business and the training provider. So we want to make sure that the training provider that you use, you can choose any training provider you want. State government program, we've got a list of training providers that we'll use. Under this program, you can use whatever training provider you want, but we will check on them to make sure that they're a real training company, and that it's, we're not just going to be throwing our money away. There's David's phone number. He's very happy to talk to any business about that, and we'll certainly make this available through Mark, this presentation available through Mark. My contact details are on here as well. So I certainly can't recommend, certainly in terms of businesses and wanting advice on your businesses, certainly have that conversation with David. And David's been working down here for a while. And again, we've struggled to get businesses take up this opportunity in the Fleurieu. And so part of the challenge is really keen for some businesses to take it up and get some of you guys up here talking about your experiences of it next year. And yeah, so that's it. And just at the end, so there's my contact details and Joanna Milbake's contact details. So if you're wanting to grow your workforce or looking at taking on more people or wanting to find out about qualifications, please come and talk to Joanna or myself. Contact us. We're very happy to take you through that and guide you through those processes. Even if it's not exactly about that, but you're wanting to tap into, say, some of Ivor's programs, and we'll talk about those in a minute, still, I'm happy to be the conduit to help you make those connections. So give me a call. And there's certainly a number of businesses down here that I've helped link up to people like David and some of our other programs. So very happy to sort of guide your businesses through the maze of making those connections into our programs as well. So, any questions? Awesome. I must have done that really well then. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Ivor. There you go.
Welcome everybody. Again, thank you for coming. My name's Ivor Hay from the Department of State Development, and thanks Brett for his presentation on the skills side of what the Department of State Development does. And as Brett sort of pointed out, we work in tandem. He works in the skills area and I work in the more or less the capacity building area within the Department of State Development. So I've got a list of just what we do roughly. So we have business help tools. So there's a lot of online stuff. Many years ago, there was a Centre for Innovation, Business and Manufacturing, which the department or the government had, and it had something like 50 people working in there. At the moment, small businesses have got about 3. So most of the information now provided to businesses is found online. And our way of operating now with the government is to actually work through networks such as Mark to help sort of give support and advice, plus other government organisations. So it really has changed a lot in the last, I guess, nearly 10 years with the internet. So a lot of information is available online. We have tools and diagnostics and fantastic guides and a really good resource, which I highly recommend. We have rerun workshops and events as well, and I'll talk more about that, as well as we also have some grant programs, which I'll also talk in more detail about that, and see how we go from there. It's fantastic. I don't have the lectern going. Okay, so on the areas of starting a business, for those who are looking at starting, so we have things around planning, structuring the business, so what sort of structure does that take in terms of partnerships or public entities. We have a guide to starting a restaurant and cafe. That's been put together with industry as well, so that's freely downloadable. So anybody looking to start or run a restaurant, this is a fantastic guide. We also have information about buying a franchise. Family business, we have a guide to engaging in family businesses. Now, the issues around family business is always interesting, and so what we developed with Family Business Australia is a guide to help people have a discussion about how a family business can effectively operate. They can turn into areas of confusion, and this document sort of opens some of the areas where family businesses need to have some of those discussions. Financial and legal obligations, so again there are key areas which we look after. Staffing, we have some guides around staffing, managing supplies and customers, and around energy efficiency and digital business. Mark recently had some workshops around digital business through the a program which we actually fund, and happy for those sort of things to come down as well. So. But there's also a guide there for engaging a web developer. We've found over the years that people sometimes don't understand how to effectively work with a web developer, and they've been ripped off, I guess, over the years. And so this is a guide to make sure that you know what you're doing and have a bit more control before you work with a web developer. Not that anything's wrong with web developers, but they need to be clearly identified of what their obligations are, and what you need to do to make sure that you're working well with them. Okay, the next one is around growing your business. So these are around looking at innovation. How does innovation work within your business? How do you actually start thinking about innovation? It gets used a lot, that word, and whether you really understand it or not, it tries to look at how do you do things differently, and what sort of ways you actually start applying innovation in your business. We also have areas around major projects. Now these are around getting contracts for significant projects. What we find with small businesses is they don't really understand very well how the tendering and quoting process works. So being major projects ready is a significant guide we have there, as well as a diagnostic to help you go through what sort of areas you need to have ready. So your quality systems, your WHS systems, your financial systems, project management, risk management. These are areas where smaller businesses need to have a better understanding, and this is a guide to help you develop that. And areas around marketing is also an interesting area. The other one is business continuity planning. We have some tools to help understand if something could or does go wrong with your business. How do you ensure that you are able to continue supply of your products or services? We found that if there is a significant impact or a loss of trade for a period of time due to floods, bushfires or something else, the ability for the small business to recover from that is often, sometimes they don't recover. What happens is their customers go and find another supplier, and then you have to work your way back into that supply chain again, and that can sometimes not happen. Okay, the next area which we've got is the business license information area. So this is the Australian Business Licence Information Service. This is a joint project between the Commonwealth and ourselves. So if you need to find out a licence for anything, this is a free database. The Commonwealth hosts the database, but we put all the data into it to make sure that it's up to date. So all local council, state government licensing requirements can be found on that website. So highly recommend that if people need to find out what's going on. Okay, we'll look at some of the workshops which we also go to. So the next area is around, I mentioned workshops. We ran a workshop here last week, or was it earlier this week? I think it was Monday, wasn't it? On marketing. So that was funded through the Department of State Development. We run another series of workshops around HR, marketing, digital business, cash flow and business planning. Now part of the program which we're looking at running down here in Victor Harbor is the MABS program, which Bob Goring over here has been organising, and MABS is looking at how mature age businesses start developing. And so we're looking at running some cash flow workshops and some business planning workshops here in Victor Harbor next month, and we'd certainly be happy for you to look further into that, and we hope that information will be going out to you. But if you're interested in attending some of those, they're half-day workshops, and they usually cost just $50 just to make sure that people turn up, and they're delivered by TAFE, and they are really good. We've actually been getting some fantastic feedback on how those workshops are going in those particular areas. We have another range of workshops which we look at called the Business Growth Workshops. These are one-day workshops, and again these are around tendering and becoming tender ready, and around exporting. So specifically we're looking at some of those areas. We'd like to be able to see if we can run something down here as well, and we might be working with Mark to be able to see if we can get some interest around major projects and particularly around some of the export areas. The next one is around coaching and mentoring. So the South Australian Government has set up the Young Entrepreneurs Scheme over the years. So Say Yes has been a very effective support mentoring program. It's run by Business SA, but it's funded by the state government, and it provides entrepreneurs with mentoring over a 12-month period, and it's costs around $800 I think for somebody to do that, but it's well worth it, and it's been a very successful program. A lot of very good businesses have come out of the Say Yes over the last, I think it's nearly 10 years now. So highly recommend that if somebody's looking at doing it, if somebody they know might be interested, age up to 35 years old I think, and looking at starting, or they've already started a business but they need a little bit more guidance perhaps. There is the Business Coaching Program, which is a program for existing businesses and a turnover of $150,000 or more, so they're already operating, but it's really just one or two man operation, so to speak. And there's some mentoring available for that, and that's a very worthwhile program. The next area is now getting into some of the grants programs. The Business Transformation Voucher Program has been going for about 3 years now. It's been very successful. This voucher program involves money being provided to a third party to bring in some innovation into your business. So if there's a degree of risk, if you need to grow the business and you need some technology of some sort or some sort of design work or something which is going to make a difference, then the Innovation Voucher Program provides funding up to $50,000 to a third party. So it's not, you don't get the money and then give it to them. They basically have an arrangement where the money, the government's money, goes to the third party who then delivers the innovation into your business. So the sort of things which they look at, reviewing and identifying business manufacturing processes, marketing, brand strategies. So, you know, it's not just about innovation in terms of developing a new piece of technology. It could be around opening up a new market opportunity. So that's something which could be of interest. Business model development, so you know how you're actually going to make money. Management and training development, so again there is areas. So it's a fairly flexible program, It's mainly aimed at the manufacturing sector, but there could be areas where services could be applied if it's related to manufacturing. So the process for getting engaged with that is competitively based. You still need a one-on-one funding. So in other words, for every dollar you get, the government will, you need to put in $1. The stage is to hire a consultant, prepare a report, and the implementation on the recommendation. So that's the two parts of the payment. And the expenditure must occur over a maximum of 1 financial year. Okay, so and then just the next one down that is if you go to the state government development DSD website, you can download all the application forms and inquiries there. Okay, so the Innovation Voucher Program also provides up to $50,000, and that's to help productivity and business diversification, and needs to demonstrate commercial benefit of the innovation. So again, business planning is going to be a key part of all these grants, and there's a link to our workshop program which provides you some direction on how you look at this business planning to really be able to have a go at these sort of grants. Okay, so I'll just go to the next one. And this is just how much they get. So between $10,000 and $50,000 paid to the service provider. Okay, just jump to the next slide, Mark. Okay, so the criteria here is annual turnover less than 200 million, so I think we'll probably fall into that happily. Being in operation for 12 months, business activity South Australia, involvement in some way in manufacturing. I said it's sort of, there could be service providers working with manufacturing companies could also have a look at this. And again, just the next slide there just goes to the website. You need to have some financial information provided as part of the application process. The Export Partnership Program, for those who are looking at exporting or know somebody who's looking at exporting, the state government has a Export Partnership Program which can fund up to $50,000 on a one-on-one basis again to help marketing activities, so hopping on planes and developing marketing collateral to open up a new market. And so those fundings can be used for coaching, mentoring, training, market intelligence, and helping develop your export strategy. And again, we have a workshop program which links into this to have you export ready and to develop an export strategy which can then be applied, which then you can use to apply for an EPP grant. And the last one which I have is the Job Accelerator Grant Scheme. Now this is recently announced in the last budget, June budget, and I have some other information over here, which is, we'll leave here. There's some flyers here, some guidelines of what this works. But if you're looking to employ somebody, the state government will provide funding, either depending on what size you are, either $4,000 or $10,000 to have somebody work with you. But you need to be able to demonstrate that person has stayed employed for 2 years with you to get the full amount. So it has to be a new job. So if there is potential there for somebody to get work with you, you can simply put in your ABN into the Revenue SA's website, and they'll sort of start working with you to see if they can actually get the funding to you. It hasn't been a good uptake on this lately, and I think the reason is because Treasury hasn't been getting the word out there very well. But I think it's a really good opportunity to look at possibilities of getting some support for hiring somebody, and then you can look to Brett to help them train up as well. So there is sort of flows of how this can work and how to coordinate these things. Those criteria here are pretty straightforward. They have to be South Australian. They have to have a vacancy. The vacancy has to be there for more than 60 days before you can hire the person. So as I said, the next slide there, Mark. So there's two grants. There's the Job Accelerator grant up to $10,000 to fill a full-time job, or a small business and startup, which is $4,000, and that's because for those businesses who are starting up are under the payroll threshold, which is under $600,000. There's $4,000 to help them. So it's also for smaller businesses. And just a little bit on what is a new job. So the criteria has to be a new job. So there's all sorts of calculations, and I think this is where probably Revenue USA make life more difficult than they probably need to be. But they've gone through all this formula, and that's also probably why they need a bit of guidelines about how you actually do that. But if there is some questions around that, you can have a talk to Revenue USA, and they should be able to help you understand a little bit better. Okay, and again, I said the guidelines are there. So the registration is just a matter of jumping online to Revenue USA and putting in an ABN number and going forward from there to register your business, and then for you to be able to put in some evidence about what your employer's situation is now and what it's likely to be in the future. So that's how they actually work it. So to do that, they need a BAS statement or some other sort of information to sort of give some evidence of what your employment situation or how many employees you have now. And I think the next slide has just got the web address, and that's the opening page, which you can't see, but it's basically just put an ABN up there, and it'll start self-populating. Now that's about it for me. If you need any other information, my card is here. I have some of the outlines of the grant programs. There's also the Industry Skills Fund. There's a flyer there about the Industry Skills Fund, which Brett mentioned, and they're keen to work with smaller businesses. So again, if you've got some questions about that, you can either talk to me, Brett. All the information gets shared around pretty well. So if you get in touch with me, I'll be able to put you in touch with Brett or somebody else within state and federal government to help you do what you need to do. And again, good luck with everything, and we'd like to be able to see you perhaps on some of our workshop programs, and we'd like to see you again here next year talking about how you've progressed in some of the areas which we've talked about today. Thank you very much, everybody.